Hello, friends of the internet. How do you like my new catchphrase? Is it working? I had this idea. I've been wanting to do this idea for a very long time, and I guess I just felt like I'm a new YouTuber, so people don't really care about my opinions, but I like talking about stories and movies and books, and I don't have a lot of people to talk about books with sometimes. So I said, screw it. I'm going to talk about movies, books. In the future, graphic novels. I have a giant stack from, sadly, Black Friday that I still need to get through. I also want to preface this a little bit and give a warning that when it comes to storytelling, because I've learned about it a lot and I've analyzed storytelling so much, sometimes it can be very hard to please me. So I apologize if there's something that I just didn't care about that you really love. I just want to make sure everybody knows that whatever my opinions are, they're my own. I respect everybody else's opinion. If you loved something and I gave it a 1 star, I have absolutely no issue with that. I will not argue with you about it. I would like to hear your opinion about why you felt differently from me. I love hearing other people's opinions, especially when they're different, but I will never ever put anybody down for feeling differently from me. But the upside of that is that if I do like something, then you know that it's probably going to be really good. Not probably, definitely really good. So I'm going to start with the books that I read this month. The first audiobook that I listened to the month was Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, read by Will Wheaton. Now I'm part of a book club, and this was the selection for the month of June. I'm still very new to audiobooks. It's very much an acclimation process, and I'm actually a little concerned that audiobooks might not be for me because I zone out a lot, and I haven't liked the majority of the audiobooks that I've listened to. So although I loved Will Wheaton as a narrator, I did not care for this book. I don't know if it's just because everybody hyped it up. I don't think so, though. If I had gone in and read this book without having heard a single thing about it, I really don't think my opinion would have been very different. So I gave it 2 stars. And the only thing that saved it from a 1-star review was the whole argument about Lady Hawk. The thing that drew me into the story initially was all the 80s references. But after you got past about, I'd say, like the first third of the book, you really lose the 80s references and it's all just about video games. So for one thing, I don't really care about video games. I'm not a huge gamer, I'm going to be honest. I don't mind it every now and then. Not a huge video gamer. I just felt like everything came too easy. The main character got everything he wanted. It felt like I wasn't reading about a human character. People would probably argue, oh, well, you know, they're so involved in this virtual reality that they kind of lose their humanity. But this guy has feelings. He likes people. He has very strong relationships with some people he meets online. He's not a person without feeling. But there was one moment in particular that the way that he handled it really bothered me, and that was the moment that the book completely lost me. I like the world that was built. I think the way that the oasis that all of this virtual reality takes place in was very interesting. It just wasn't a book for me. If I'm being completely honest, I feel like this author isn't the best at writing stories, and he covers that up by making a lot of 80s references. And this is going a little too long now for just a little monthly wrap-up video, so if you want to hear more opinions, please comment below. Let me know what you thought of the book. 2 stars for Ready Player One. The next book that I read was The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. The Upside of Unrequited is about this girl named Molly who has had 26 crushes and has never had a boyfriend, never been kissed, always just looked at boys from afar. So immediately when I saw the synopsis for this book, I connected to it because this was me up until college. She has a twin sister who gets a new girlfriend, and along with her girlfriend comes this cute boy that she hangs out with all the time, and she starts to get a little crush on him. But then she also gets a new job and meets this really nerdy guy who's into like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, named Reed. And the other guy's name is Will, but obviously because I only thought of Reed's name, you might know which guy I liked better. This book was really interesting. It was really fun. There was a lot of diversity in it. The parents of Molly and her sister Cassie are also lesbians, so there's a lot of a lifestyle that I'm not familiar with, and it was really interesting to read that. I gave it a 4 stars. The only reason I didn't give it a 5th star, that I really liked the book, is that it's just a little bit YA fluff, but, you know, it still left an impression with me. I closed the book and I felt very satisfied. I thought about the characters for a little bit. It's definitely one that it makes you feel good. By the end of it, it just has a very satisfying ending. And the last book that I read or listened to this month was This Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. Now this book I decided to pick up solely because of everything I've seen around YouTube. I was very, very, very intrigued by the synopsis. There's a city physically divided and both sides are headed by the families of our main characters. And in this world, violent acts create monsters. That concept alone was what drew me in. Unfortunately, I didn't feel like this book quite gave me what I was hoping for. I can't put my finger on it. This one's a really hard one for me to explain what I didn't like about it. I gave the book a 3, which is decent because, first of all, Victoria Schwab's writing is very good. I think a big thing that didn't work for me was the narrator. I think that really ruined this for me. She got better near the end, but I was already just kind of checked out at that point. It really started to get to me that every male character sounded the same, and the voice that she gave August in particular just didn't fit what I thought I would have read him as. And I feel like it made it really hard for me to connect to the story. I'm interested in picking up Our Dark Duet, the sequel, but if I do, I will absolutely have to be reading it on my own. And I might even go back and read this book by myself because it's just really hard to really even say anything about it, which is really unfortunate. If you listen to the audiobook, please let me know what you thought. Is it just me? Alright, now we're at the movies. So first I'm going to talk about the movies that I watched at home with my boyfriend, because they were all horror movies, and if you know us, that's no surprise whatsoever. First I'm going to talk about the remake of The Blob. I don't remember the exact year, I believe it's from the 80s, starring not Matt Dillon, but his significantly less attractive brother, Kevin Dillon, playing the rebel motorcycle leather jacket guy who I didn't really want to look at. Dustin got mad at me because I kept making fun of it. Because I was like, it's just a big blob. Like, how is that scary? No, I haven't seen the original, which is really sad. I have seen Slither, which is partially based on the Blob, and I definitely see the influence there. Now, after having seen it, I cannot make fun of it anymore. I think the biggest props I have to give it are the special effects. I was very impressed. Of course, Dustin decided it would be a good idea to feed me while this was going on, and I was thoroughly disgusted, which, when it comes to horror, that's probably a good thing. I don't know what else to say about it. It was just the special effects were really what sold this movie for me. And based on that, I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. And then this month was Jason Voorhees Palooza. So the Friday the 13th video game launched this month, or at the end of last month. I believe it was this month. And if you haven't played it, you should definitely, at the very least, go look up some videos on it, because it's a very interesting game. Because the game came out, Dustin and I were naturally kind of in this Friday the 13th mood, so we watched a few different movies. I've seen the Friday the 13th movies in a very strange order. There's no really rhyme or reason to it. It's just whatever movies Dustin likes and felt like showing me. I'm constantly confused by what number I've seen, but I believe I started with part 5, and then we watched part 7, and then the game came out, so then we watched part 3D. So that was the first Jason movie of the month, was part 3D. And boy is it 3D. They really wanted to make sure that the audience remembered they were watching a 3D movie. And it wasn't just with the kills. Oh, have a guy string a yo-yo in front of the camera. There were just the corniest shots in 3D. There was a point where Jason had killed 2 people and they had like rakes sticking out of them different directions, and the camera was like here, and so there's one coming right at the camera, and then pan over to the other dead body. Oh, there's the other one sticking right at you. Bet you didn't see that coming, did you? Oh, it's scary. There was one shot that was very nice. It was the douchebag that was walking around naked on his hands, and then Jason comes up, stabs him, but the camera was on the floor underneath the guy, and so the angle of the 3D, he's coming at the camera, but it was a quick shot. It was really subtle. I thought it was really well done. That was probably my favorite shot in the movie, and it actually was one of the ones that kind of catered to the 3D. This is a weird movie because while it has all these weird 3D gimmicks going on, it's also the movie that established Jason and kind of the formula. We get his hockey mask and kind of established maybe the tropes for the different characters. I think we kind of had them, but I feel like it's really settled in this one. But man, those 3D shots really ruined it. So appropriately, I couldn't help but rate this movie 3 stars. 3D stars. After that, we watched the documentary Crystal Lake Memories about the making of all the Jason movies. So it wasn't just Friday the 13th and then the movies that couldn't be called Friday the 13th. It covered Freddy vs. Jason and even the remake. It was a great documentary. It's 6 hours long, though. It was watched in 3 different sittings. But it was a really good documentary. If you are interested in filmmaking or horror or 3D, or 3D, is that 3D again? Or for just Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees. It's a great film, and you don't have to watch it all at once. They weren't afraid of getting a little political either. They interviewed Kane Hodder about how he felt that he did the last 3 official Friday the 13th movies when they weren't called Friday the 13th anymore, and then suddenly they didn't ask him to come back for Freddy vs. Jason, and they willingly put in all of his interview footage about, I thought maybe I would see the movie and understand why they didn't use me, but I got there, I watched it, and I said, no, I don't understand, and he was really hurt by it, and I thought it was brave of the filmmakers to put that in. You usually think that kind of politics get kind of skirted around that. So I thought it was really cool. It felt like an honest documentary because of that. Also, it was really awesome to see the special effects, see what did and didn't make it into the movies. I highly recommend this documentary. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. It is very well done, very interesting. Check it out. And then after we watched the documentary and I had seen pretty much how all of the Friday the 13th movies end, I finally went to watch number 1. I think Friday the 13th Part 1 is a really good horror film. It's very campy, as, most horror films are, but I personally think it has the most interesting story. Would I prefer to watch Mrs. Voorhees over Jason? Not particularly, but I think it's an interesting twist on horror that, I hope that this isn't a spoiler, it's a movie from the 70s. I think it's interesting to see that perspective of a mother who has been hurt and took it a little to the extreme. I was impressed with this one. I'd give it 4.5 stars. I can't give it a 5 because it's not perfect by any means, but it's an enjoyable film. I liked it quite a lot. The first movie that I saw in theaters this month was Wonder Woman. Oh my gosh, I was so happy with this film, as I know a lot of people were. I was nervous, as a lot of people were, because, DC hasn't really been doing that well lately. But this, I think, is really going to help them regain their momentum, which is nice. It means a lot as a woman to see we finally got a superhero doing all these awesome things. It means so much. Like, I can't even explain it. I thought that they handled feminism in a really good way. I like that Wonder Woman comes from this island of women. She doesn't know anything about the roles that have been given to women in other places around the world. She gets into World War I, and she just goes in there, she's like, alright, I'm going to get things done. You're not going to stop me. You're not going to stop me. I'm just going to keep going. They only addressed that she was a woman and how dare she be here in that one scene in the war room. Other than that, she just goes in and does it. And I think that is the best way to speak about feminism, is to just have the character do it. You don't need to talk about how she's a woman doing these things. Like, show, don't tell. That's like one of the first rules of filmmaking. I think it really paid off, and it's going to continue to pay off with future Wonder Woman stories. I can't wait. 5 stars. All the stars! All the stars for Wonder Woman. The next movie I watched in theaters was Baywatch. It was about what I expected. I thought it was going to be a decent comedy, not the best I've ever seen, but something to enjoy as I watched it, and that's what I got. I loved the dorky character in it. I don't remember his name. He kind of mildly reminded me of Josh Gad. I think just, the kind of typical awkward nerdiness. I was rooting for him. I wish he was the main character instead of Zac Efron. I hated his character. At first I thought it was hilarious. He was a straight up parody of Ryan Lochte, and I think Ryan Lochte is someone who deserves to be made fun of. So I thought that was hilarious. But they dropped that really quickly. By the third act, he was suddenly a genius. I was like, this guy is too dumb to be doing all the things that he's doing. Also, he's a douchebag. I don't care about him. But suddenly in the third act, he hasn't done anything to redeem himself. And suddenly like, oh, whoa, we're going to push him and you got to care about him. No, it's just a 3 stars for me. I think it's worth seeing. And then the final movie that I saw in theaters this month was Cars 3. This movie delighted me so much. I know that there was a lot less comedy in this movie, but I personally enjoyed it. I felt like this was the story that needed to be told. I do wish that we got one more movie instead of part 2. I wish that we got something more focused on Lightning McQueen's glory days. I'm really glad that they just completely reduced Mater in this. He's a fun character, but it's not what the movies are about. And I feel like we found the heart of Cars again. And Cruz is amazing. I don't want to give any spoilers for her because I actually had her built up a little bit too much for me, and I ended up being like, it's not quite what I was expecting. But I think if I watch it again, I'm going to like her even more. The ending was so perfect. Pixar is so good at storytelling. If you want to learn and understand storytelling, watch Pixar. That's what I did in film school. I was shown Pixar short films as an example of really good storytelling, and it stuck with me forever. And they continue to do it really, really well. I'll be honest, I didn't start off as a huge Cars fan. My nephew is very, very, very obsessed with Cars and Lightning McQueen, so I started to become a little bit more fond of it, and the last time I watched it, I was like, wow, this story is really, really good. This is way better than I gave it credit for. So, 5 out of 5 stars. If you haven't seen Cars 3, go see it. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for my June story exposure wrap-up, I guess. Please tell me what stories you enjoyed this month. I would love to hear it and maybe even have a conversation with you about it. So, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.